goes back to like 1764 is when the town is actually established. There were people that lived here before that. There was Dutch settlements going back to like the 1600s. But when the guy that founded the town, his name was David Stewart. He was a doctor, and because Port Penn's right along the river, right? The river goes all the way up to Philadelphia. The river is a huge commercial highway at the time, and so David Stewart actually sees all these ships going by to Philadelphia, and he thinks, if we opened up a port here, we could steal all that business from Philadelphia, and we could grow to be the size of Philadelphia. So when he establishes the town, he's thinking this is going to be a metropolis along the Delaware. Obviously, he didn't quite achieve that. Good try. But when he laid out the town, so this is his original design for the town. We're standing right here. This is the original plan for the town. So this is the street going that way, Market Street. So basically, if you look at it like this, we're here. This street goes down towards the river. And if you've ridden Route 9 quite a bit, right? Mm-hmm. So Route 9 comes out to here and then goes down this way towards Dover. All of this, he had planned for all of this to be like commercial property. And you see the lots are real small and real close together, real urban. New streets, laid new streets, so it's like a grid like New York City. Problem is, if you're familiar with the town, like I said, Route 9 goes to here. All of this is just marsh. Okay. So the river is like here. So already when he plans the town, he's already thinking, well, we can put 2 more streets in. There's no way you can put 2 streets in. When we get to it, you'll see. So he was already planning bigger than he could actually achieve even then. And we're going to walk, like I said, we're just going to walk sort of that path and talk about some of the stuff. Any questions about any of that?
No.
Yeah. Okay. It's a beautiful day for a walk.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, let's go up the stairs here. They just, so active till 1961. There was an African-American schoolhouse across the street as well. So there are people that grew up in town and still live in town that went to school here. It was only up through 8th grade, so if you wanted to go on to high school, you had to get a ride into like St. George's or Delaware City. But the reason it's all beat up around here is because they've just redone the foundation on this building. They had it jacked up. Literally jacked it like 8 feet off the ground.
So that's still the original building?
Yeah, this is still the original building. It's been redone a couple times. So like a lot of it's been repainted multiple times, new roof, all that stuff. But yeah, it is indeed a historic building. I'll talk more about it at the end because it's a museum now, and we'll talk about how it got to be a museum when we come back. But that's why the ground's all beat up, because of all the work they've been doing. So they just took the fence down like this past week around the whole plot. So as we're walking into town, one of the interesting things about Port Penn, so many of the whole downtown is a historic district. So many of the buildings go back into like the late 1700s, early 1800s. So as you're walking into town, you almost get the feel for kind of what it would have been like way back then. It would have had sort of the same footprint, going back to like the 1830s at least, or 50s. Some of these, you're going to notice again, the plots are real close together, so there's not a lot of yards, because again, a lot of these houses go back to that period when they were trying to build a real city. If you see a house like that one there, which is for sale, that one that's built off the street, that is a newer structure, so it's a modern house. Okay. If it's been built at the time, it would have been built right up to the street. The whole idea of the town originally was that you had a center square, which is where the church is now. That was your market square. So local farmers would come into town every day and they'd sell their produce from the market square. So a lot of these houses that are built along the stretch here along Market Street, they're dual purpose houses. So you have the family living upstairs, but then the bottom floor is like a storefront where you're selling stuff out of the storefront. So that's why, like, you see this house, which just looks ridiculous, kind of. Nothing symmetrical. And you got this weird awning, right? Well, the awning is there because, and the symmetry is off because this was a storefront. So the idea is that the awning provides a little bit of, if you need to get out of the rain, you're going to get your customers under there. Maybe they'll step in, buy some things.
Okay.
Same thing with the off symmetry. The door is offset towards the market square so that you have to take just fewer steps to get in. Very clever. And the people of Port Penn probably love me when I do my tours because all the dogs are coming. Hey, buddy.
So these are all just converted to just regular houses now?
Yep. So all of these are, most of them I believe are privately owned, but there are, because they're part of the National Register for the town, there's riders as to what you can do. So for the most part they have to keep their exterior features. The exception, of course, is the modern paneling, which helps preserve the house because it's easier to maintain and more waterproof and all that stuff. So a lot of people, we do tours through the town, and people are like, well, it doesn't look historic at all.
No.
You're right, it doesn't really, but the as far as the actual arrangement of the house, it is. It's one of those weird things where, like, if you buy a house in a historic district, it's your house, you own the house, but there's also rules as to what you can and can't do, and materials and things like that, so I don't know exactly how all that works, but just about, like I said, just about all these, you're going to see so many of these little marker signs throughout town. These were paid for by the town has its own historical society. They paid for these, and every single one that has the little marker is part of that National Register, which means that it all adds to the town. If you take one away, or a number of them away, the whole town loses its historic significance, if you will. It's not quite the right word, but
I got you.
You get the idea. Not a bad building, huh? Not a whole lot of brick buildings. Hey, buddy. So, this historically is your market square. So this is the center square of the town. This is going to be your commercial center. So the idea is that, again, this is right here. The idea is that this is going to be your center. All of this is going to be sort of commerce building on the market square as you go. By 1834, you had a big change, a couple of big changes, but one significant one. By 1834, it became very clear to the Stewart family that this big plan for stealing all of Philadelphia's business just wasn't going to work. The reason is, in 1829, the Chesapeake and Delaware Canal was built. So when you have the Chesapeake, and you're familiar with that? When the Chesapeake and Delaware Canal is built, now you can get ships from Philadelphia to Baltimore, and you don't have to ever come past Port Penn at all. So Port Penn's sort of cut off the line. It's going to happen again with the railroads. When the railroads become big, Port Penn's not going to get a railroad station. Or a city 4 miles up, that gets the railroad station. So in 1834, the Stewart family had previously owned the market square. They sell the market square to the Presbyterian Church. Big day for riding. It's a good day for it. So in any case, they sell the market square to the Presbyterian Church. You can see up there that on the stone, this is the great thing about my tours is I can cheat sometimes. But the Presbyterian Church is founded in 1834, but this building isn't built until 1856. So in 1834, when the Presbyterian Church is founded, they meet in what looks like a pole shed that they built here. It's really ugly. So apparently it's so ugly that there are visitors to town that are on record as saying it's a great town, but why in the world is that ugly barn on the main market square? So in 56, they decide we can't have that. They tear the barn down and they build this. At the time that it's built, it is only the third brick structure in downtown Port Penn. There has, to this day, not been another brick structure built since this one. Very beautiful. It's got the beautiful stained glass, the sort of flower clover at the top there. This church was an active congregation from 1834 to 2020 when they closed. They had to close the doors in 2020. Now, fortunately,
COVID.
Beg your pardon?
COVID.
I think COVID maybe played in, but it was starting to die off anyway. Now, fortunately, from my perspective, there is another, like the Presbyterian Church is now renting this building to another church that meets here on Sundays.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool. So it is being taken care of. But it dominates the skyline. It's hugely important to the history of Port Penn. Questions about that?
No.
All right. Have you ever been to a church where the sanctuary is on the second floor?
No.
Yeah, it seems weird to me, but this church is like that. The actual sanctuary, the meeting hall is on the second floor. Weird. So now we have, you can snap yourself a picture of the dumbest speed limit sign in all of Delaware. Because how in the world are you going to go up to 30 miles an hour from here to there anyway? Like, why did they put this in? Anyway. So here we have, this is the oldest building in downtown Fort Penn right here. This is Dr. David Stewart's house. So the guy that founded the town, this is where he lived. This dates back to 1750. Which means, if you'll notice, unlike every other building we've passed, this one is not parallel to the street. Any idea why?
It's probably here before the street, maybe?
It was here before the street, that's exactly right. So when he founded the town, he ran new streets because he wanted it to be all grid-like, like New York City.
Gotcha.
When he built the house, there was no street here. So presumably he built it to take perfect advantage of the sun, or maybe the river site, something like that. But it is a beautiful house in any case, nice perfect symmetry, 5 bays. You can see that it had a porch, or like a wraparound porch at one point with the awning. See where the joist came in for the awning.
Yeah.
You'll also notice this has a very intricate brickwork to it. This type of brickwork is called Flemish bond, which in other words, you take the bricks and you'll lay them like lengthwise, and then one with the footer out, and alternate, so you get this sort of weave pattern. Stewart is wealthy, so Stewart is actually going to buy 2 different colored bricks, which is why you get this patchwork of gray and red. That's just him showing off, basically.
Okay.
He wants everybody to know, I'm the rich guy in town, this is my town. And then, of course, he puts the market square right on his own back, like side step, so that he can be right in the thick of things. So it's all part of the plan. This building is now, I think this is privately owned, but with an easement, so the people that own it have a responsibility to take care of it appropriately, which they're doing a very good job. They've put the new porches on and got everything looking good, new windows and all. So looks pretty neat. But yeah, this is the oldest. Keep this one in mind because we're going to see another one later on that I want you to compare it to.
Okay.
Questions about any of that?
People talk about any ghost stories around here?
I'm sure they do. I've not heard any, interestingly enough, but I have no doubt that there are no shortage of ghost stories. Port Penn is a very sort of localized community. A lot of the folks that live here have lived here, or their families have lived here for generations. In fact, I'm not from Port Penn, so I speak as an outsider. But there's an interview that was done in the early 1990s with a couple guys that farmed around here. And one of the things that they said was, when you arrive in you move to Port Penn, they tell you this is God's country, perfect place, but we don't really like outsiders very much. So a lot of, like, even in town, there's like everybody knows everybody. They'll say, oh, there's Thelma Bendler's house, or there's Floyd's house, that type of thing. So that's kind of cool. You don't really get that so much anymore with people moving around. Like I moved around constantly.
I see kids running through the streets.
Beg your pardon?
I see a lot of kids running through
kids
the streets too.
Like, yep, things like that. Yep.
I don't see that.
But they really do care a lot about their history for sure. So, like I know the guy that lives right over here with this. In fact, he might be out. The guy that owns this green barn here. He works with us. he's been fishing on the Delaware River for like his entire life, right here, crabbing and fishing out of Port Penn. So he's got a lot of skills that most of us don't have. He can drive a boat like nobody's business, I'll tell you. Pretty interesting. All right, we're gonna actually swing back up this way. So there's a couple of houses in town. This is one of them. Stuart has like a whole bunch of kids. He has some sons, but he also has a number of daughters. And what he's going to do, he's going to make sure that many of his daughters marry into important families in Newcastle and Wilmington and places like that. And then he's going to give them a house in Port Penn so that they stay local and you get all that important power. So that's what he did here. This is one of his daughter's houses that he gave to his daughter to try to keep him around a little bit. It looks like the state of Delaware.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know where they got that or if they just made it, but it's pretty nifty. This is another one of your, so this is like 1790. This is another one of those commercial properties where you had this one's divided in the middle here. This side is your commercial property originally. So you have the nice entrance off the main street right next to Market Square. Family lived on that side with the door around the corner so that you're not just getting people wandering into the house on the street. Pretty nifty. Now the solar panels though are not original. Solar panels on the top. You ever been to Kelly's?
No, I pass it all the time.
Yeah.
I gotta stop in there one of these days.
I've also never been, but I can't tell you how many times I've been on tours and people say, best crab cakes in Delaware.
Okay.
At Kelly's. Looks like a bit of a dive, but apparently it's quite nice.
I have to stop over there after this.
Yeah. But this is so Kelly's isn't a historic structure, but this is historically this is the tavern corner, because down at the end of the street here was the port. So if ships were coming in, this is the logical place where if sailors are getting off the ships, this is going to be where they want to have their, where they're going to want to stay. So way back in like 1784, Rebecca Reed and her husband opened the first tavern inn here on this square. They had like 11 rooms. And at the time, in a room, if you had a bed, you could fit at least a couple people in. Like you could rent space in the bed, where you might then have to share space with someone you don't know. Sounds terrible to me, but do what you got to do. So we are now, and you're familiar with this because you ride through here a lot, I'm sure. But we are now here. Okay? And this goes down that way.
Gotcha.
So Stuart had planned to have 2 more streets till the river here. And you can see that never happened. Because what you got here. Where the reeds start, that's basically the marsh. That's basically you have maybe another couple hundred feet to hit the river. So he was never going to be able to build there. So his town is automatically sort of inherently shrunken from what he had planned and intended. Now the guy that buys or takes control of the port in 1834, the same year that the Stuarts sell the Market Square, a guy by the name of Joseph Cleaver and his wife, they take ownership of the port. So they're going to control shipping out of town. Cleaver and his wife then build this building, which is they call it Linden Hall. We call it the Cleaver House. Well, Linden Hall's fine too. But this is obviously quite similar to Stuart's house, right? In terms of what it's trying to do. Its magnificence, all of that. You don't have the different colored bricks, but you still have Flemish bond work. It doesn't quite look as symmetrical. So this is where he's going to live, and this building, just building this, is kind of the statement of like, this is the Cleaver town now. This isn't Stuart's town anymore. So he's going to live here. He and his wife have 10 kids, so they do need the space. But he's also going to run a law office and a mercantile and a grain store and all kinds of, and a post office out of this building. So that's why you got all these different doors going over. There are reports, even though Port Penn is no longer trying to compete with Philadelphia in terms of size, it is still a very important regional shipping center. So there are reports that there were times when you had backed up along Route 9, you had a half a mile of wagon traffic waiting to get in and deal with Cleaver to ship goods out from the port. That's hard to imagine.
Yeah.
We wouldn't get that kind of traffic unless someone had an accident somewhere. This building is currently owned by Delaware State Parks. So my company owns this. The goal is, have you ever heard of the resident curatorship program? Okay, I didn't think so. Most people have not. Delaware State Parks has something called a resident curatorship program. What that means is we have a lot of historic buildings in Delaware State Parks that we don't frankly have the money to take care of the way we'd like to. So the resident curatorship program allows people that have an independent source of wealth or income, that also have a passion for historic places, can essentially take over a historic property, put in the money to restore it, and then live in it. So this one is available for anyone that would want to do that. It would be a very it's a tough sell.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of money to fix it up. It's not. I mean, the bones of it are pretty decent, but it does have a lot of problems, and it's just a big piece of property. So I don't think we have anyone lined up at the moment. If you're interested in moving into
Maybe
a new
one of
place,
these days.
maybe one day, huh? Yeah. I keep offering. We've had a couple people come look at it, and I always offer. I'll come haul concrete or whatever. But it's a tough sell for sure. That program, the idea of that program was that it would benefit the people that take it over, because then they could live in it. You don't have to pay rent or anything. You do have to put the money into restoring it though, and then it would benefit the state because the building would be preserved.
Well, if that's the case.
Yeah. But the problem then is it's really hard to, if you don't have an independent source of funding, you can't really apply for loans because you're not going to own the property. So there's some problems with the program too. And Delaware State Parks is working on how do we make this a better deal for the people that are doing the work. But anyway, something to think about. We're going to walk up Congress Street a little bit here. So as during the Cleaver period, 1834 to say 1890 or so, 1880, Port Penn is operating as this sort of regional shipping center. As you get into the later 1800s and the 1900s, Port Penn is becoming increasingly suburban, where it's actually, you're getting jobs up in Newcastle and Wilmington. You live here, but you're really not working here so much. So with that, as we walk up Congress Street, you start to see that. Now you've got houses that have yards and space. You're not building quite as tightly together. You also have some very interesting, this house here has a very interesting history. You can see probably out in the distance there's a set of trees there. Like not this first set that's you look through those trees, okay. You can see, yeah. Okay, so what that is, those trees are on Reedy Island. There's a little island there in the Delaware River.
Okay. Actually, I kayaked out there one time.
Awesome. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so that's Reedy Island. You've been out there. Reedy Island, from about 1870 to maybe 1950 or so, there was a U.S. Navy station there. There was a quarantine station. So if you were sailing into Philadelphia, you would have to stop there, and everybody on the boat has to get off and get checked for diseases like smallpox or anything that's real contagious. Well, that closed down in 1950 because now you're starting to get airplanes and all kinds of things. There's so many different ways to get into Philadelphia. So the Army or the Navy just left everything out there. So there was a guy in town named Shelby Collins. He had a dock building service, a pile driving service, things like that. He bought several of those properties from the U.S. government for like $7,500, and then he floated some of those houses over here. So this building was actually built as the commandant's house out on Reedy Island and was floated over here by Shelby Collins and placed here, which is really, really cool to think about. I don't know how you do that, but engineers are amazing people. You can see sort of those little quarter-deck windows up by the chimney. It just sort of speaks to the Navy background for this particular house. One of the other things that you see with this house, just the surroundings of this house, these little sheds, all these little sheds here, and then the buoy, things of that nature. just about everybody in Port Penn in the early 1900s would have had some kind of a little shed like this, because so many people are participating in fishing and hunting and trapping. So in the spring, you're going out and you're setting your shad nets, and you're going to get shad. You're going to get sturgeon. And you familiar with sturgeon?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're getting sturgeon in the summer. Duck hunting and things like that in the fall, and then trapping for muskrats, raccoons, foxes, otters, that kind of thing all winter long. And you're using that to supplement your income. So that's a huge part of Port Penn's culture. And even today, not as much today. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there were a lot of people in town that remembered doing that growing up. Not as much today.
Man, I'd love to live that lifestyle.
I know, yeah, and what's great is Delaware State Park. So Delaware State Parks sort of acquired a footprint in Port Penn in like 1990. And at that time, we and Delaware Humanities was very big on this too. We're collecting a whole bunch of interviews with people that have lived this life and have grown up fishing and trapping and things in Port Penn. So we have all these interviews and transcripts of interviews from folks that lived this in Port Penn. And you read what they're writing, and you really do think like, man, I would love to be able to go back and try it out. Have you ever done any trapping or anything like that?
No, I got my hunting license a couple years ago, but
Okay.
never really did anything with it. I just,
Yeah.
I don't know a whole lot of people that do that kind of stuff.
It's tough because it feels like you can't just like jump in
Yeah,
without someone to guide you.
yeah.
So I'm the same way. I've never been hunting or I've sort of fiddled with the idea of trying trapping. There's a place in, I think it's Smyrna, maybe, that does trapper education. So something to think about. This house here, I love this house. There's a lot of cool things about this house. We call it the Hubbs house. You can also call it the Quillen house. The Quillen family built this in 1915. And this is a Sears Roebuck house. So they actually ordered this out of a magazine and had it brought to the site and assembled, just like Amazon.
Huh.
There's a couple of neat features. So you got these like cedar shingles on the top tier where you got that pattern. I love that because you don't have it on the bottom, just on the top. You got the L, like the wraparound porch. You've got this little segment here that doesn't have any support, like it's popping out from the wall, but there's no column to support it. They call that cantilevering. And then there's also a stained glass window, which I love because someone paid extra for that. So it shows you a little bit of something about the house. But this house also shows you, like, this has a lot with a yard. Once again, as you move into the 1900s, you're getting into, you're not trying to build an urban metropolis anymore. You're working on building a suburb. So you're going to want some space. You're going to want a yard, things of that nature. I had someone on a tour one time. They said they always call this the dollhouse.
Yeah.
Like a dollhouse. This one is also owned by Delaware State Parks. So Delaware State Parks uses this for employee housing.
Okay.
Not bad. I got one more thing I want to show you up this way. Now, if you were to continue along here, which you can definitely
this
do.
road goes up this
Yeah,
way.
actually, you can't drive all the way to the breakwater, but you can walk the road all the way out to the breakwater and walk right along the river. And it eventually leaps back to Route 9, right next to Thorntown, right across from Thorntown Road. But this is the Augustine Wildlife Area. So it links on back to the wetland trail too.
Okay.
But they do hunting back there in the fall. They have like deer stands and things like that. I don't know how successful they are. This house here was the lighthouse keeper's house. So you can see these concrete pedestals right next to the house. This was for a range light. You ever heard of a range light before?
No.
No? Yeah, I hadn't either till I came here. Range lights are designed, they're lighthouses, but they're designed to help you navigate the river channel. So at a time before you had GPS or radar or anything like that, ship captains had to know exactly where the river channel was. It's constantly moving, like it's constantly, a lot of turns. So what you did was you built range lights. And the idea was this light would be sort of a short light, and then it would pair to one further back that was a taller light. So if you're driving the ship or you're piloting the ship, the idea is you're going to look for those two lights to be above, like vertical, one above the other, and that's how you know, okay, I'm in the channel right now. I just have to follow straight to the lights until I see the next series. Okay. So the guy that lived here was in charge of keeping that lamp lit, and you know that he better keep that lamp lit.
Yeah.
You're going to have yourself a boating accident out there. There's still one of these. I don't think it's functional. I don't think any of them are really functional. You can see the modern version of this up at the refinery in Delaware City. If you're ever out there on the river, they have one. But if you're driving down Port Penn Road, so like if you come to where where we met, where you parked your bike, and you come to that T-junction, and instead of going left, you take a right, and you just keep going down that road, you eventually will see a really tall lighthouse. That was a rear light for a range light.
All right.
Yeah, rear range light.
Okay, I've seen a few of those in Delaware.
Have you? Yeah. They had them all over the place, so I'm sure you'll see them.
Yeah.
But,
my friend always jokes it looks like that robot from The Incredibles.
It does.
With the red light.
It does. Yeah, you're right. I never thought about that, but it definitely does. That's funny. So that's your range light system. They had those all up and down. You can even see still if you get like a chart of the river, they have the range light positions marked with a little like dotted line that draws you straight to the channel. Like I said, this goes up to the wildlife area. So I think you could drive up until a certain point and there's a gate, but you can park there and then just continue walking.
Okay.
Or you can follow the wetland trail, which gets you out there too.
Yeah, so I saw like there's like a building back there, people working.
Yeah.
What they do back there.
Yep, that's where they do their shotgun lotteries when they have deer hunting.
Oh, okay.
But usually there's no one back there. So, any questions about anything? This is where we turn around. If you would rather, what we can do instead is we can link up to the wetland trail and walk back that way. If you would prefer.
Yeah, I got time.
All right, yeah, that's fine. It really doesn't take a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of difference in time. But you might get, who knows? It's a nice day. Might see some wildlife. Might see some birds. Get some photographs. I can show you the fishing cabin. That'd be cool.
Okay.
The marsh, the wetland was so important to folks in Port Penn because again, that whole seasonal economy, fishing, hunting, trapping, it all relies on your proximity to the river and to the wetland. If you don't have the river and the wetland, you can't do really any of that.
Yeah, I was always thinking if the apocalypse happened, this might be the area to go.
It might be.
Out.
Yeah, it might be. I have a lot of friends that say they're going out to Peapatch Island. I don't really think that's a very good idea. Because as safe as you are, you're going to run out of food eventually. Then you're going to be screwed. But here's not bad. So you're from Wilmington, you say? Mm-hmm. Did you live there your whole life?
No, actually, I lived in Illinois outside of Chicago until I was 15 and then moved out there.
Cool. Do you like it up there?
I did. I had a lot of people out there, but I think I like it out here a little better.
Okay,
Yeah.
Nice. I've been pretty satisfied with Delaware.
Yeah.
I've lived here for about 10 years. I'm not from here either. I'm from Pennsylvania. Middle of the mountains, Pennsylvania.
Oh, I'd love that.
Yeah, that's not bad. Not a lot of mountains here.
Yeah, I had a van at one point that I converted to live in. I took it back out to Illinois. That lasted about maybe 3 months working there before I'm like, I'm good on this place.
See, I've never been, I haven't been further west, with one exception when I was real little. We went to Colorado, but I haven't, these tall reeds with the feathery tops. Mm-hmm. This is called Phragmites, or reeds. It's invasive. It's really, really bad for the environment because once it gets in, it's really hard to get out. It just chokes everything out. What we like to see are the cattails, which is these shorter ones that look like hot dogs on sticks. Most of them are pretty exploded right now, but kind of look like corn dogs, I feel like. Hello, how's it going? These are really good for the environment. These are native, so they're really, really good for the wetland. So Fish and Wildlife is doing, I think it's Fish and Wildlife, they're doing wetland management, where it's like they control the flow of water. I'm not much of a scientist, but somehow that helps kill the Phragmites and bring back the cattails. And I think it's working, because I'm starting to see things that I haven't seen for a while. Good things, like muskrat hutches.
I was gonna say, there's some parts I drive through here. It's all you can see for ever.
Yeah, I remember even 5 years ago, I had not seen one of those around here. So they're definitely coming back. We're gonna actually jump on the trail here. Swing our way back over towards the schoolhouse. Might be a little muddy. Forgot that it rained a couple nights ago, but I think we'll be alright. I have to watch our step at a couple spots.
That's all right.
This is where you can see, this is one of the Fish and Wildlife deer stands. I have never seen anyone actually using any of these. I know they do, but...
So I might have ate lunch up in there one time.
Oh yeah? That's pretty cool. This is a pretty decent place to like bird walk and things like that.
Yeah.
We got a couple of bird walking programs coming up. One in April and one in May. But wading birds love the wetland when it's healthy. When a wetland is healthy, it's actually I was surprised to find this out, but it's the most biodiverse ecosystem in the world. And it's got a lot of benefits to humanity. In addition to just the diversity of the habitat, wetlands are also really good for flood control. So this area, believe it or not, doesn't flood as badly as Delaware City. In my experience, Fort Penn is usually a little more dry even than Delaware City when we have major weather events.
Okay, I know where we are. That's my little hangout spot.
Oh yeah, it's a great spot. It feels almost enchanted actually right there. Yeah, it's a nice little trail. We don't walk it much in the summer because of the bugs. But... I love that they got the evergreens back here. I don't know exactly where they came from, but pretty cool. Sometimes you can see tracks and stuff back here. Not real often, but mostly raccoon prints and deer. Doing the shad run, you would want to string your net in the best possible location, which may not be particularly close to where you live. So what you're going to do instead is you're going to haul this out, and this is going to be your house while this floats on the river, and it's going to be your house during the shad run. So I can actually open this up for you. It's in a little bit of disarray inside, but you can get the idea. Hopefully we won't have wasps. Got to give you something you can't see on your own. So there is a little wasp nest there, but you should be okay if you steer clear of it.
No.
We're still just kind of waking up for the year. But you can see there's not much to it, but you got a bed, you got a stove.
Oh, that's all you need.
Open up the windows on the sides, and you can live out of this for a couple weeks while the shed runs on. And then all your neighbors are going to have them too. So you get these like floating communities all together. Some of them apparently had like little hidden compartments in the floor, where if they caught something that they weren't allowed to have, they could stash it in there. And then if the Fish and Wildlife agent came by, or the revenue guy came by, then you'd be all good to rock and roll.
Oh, man, you guys renting this out?
What'd you say?
So you guys renting this out?
We are not renting it out. We do need to clean it out. But yeah, it would be, that's actually not a bad idea. Have someone living here.
Oh, I'd totally live in here.
Yeah? Oh. Just need a bathroom, huh?
Yeah.
You're good to go. Yeah, it's really not bad. It's really not bad. We need to clean it out, but you can picture living here.
Oh, yeah.
That might be something to think about. That's a good idea you just had.
Yeah, I'll leave my number when you guys are ready to do it. Is that the foundation for another one there?
So that one was a muskrat shack or a skinning shack. So again, a lot of these guys, when they were trapping, you would have like a shack that you could use for your, you could put your equipment in there, and then you would skin. There's actually, it's kind of faded out, but you skin your stuff and you put them on stretchers, and you can hang them out outside the shed so that they dry and cure. So we had one of those, and some idiot set fire to it in 2016 and burned it down. Some kid was bored. It's a shame though. We've never been able to get it rebuilt. Maybe someday. Basically just a pole shed, more or less. 10 by 16 pole shed or whatever. But they were pretty popular too, pretty common.
Wow, this space, it's like a little
Just a little
stage.
sort of outdoor theater, outdoor classroom, yeah. We don't use it a whole lot. There's a very short window. Like today would be perfect for something. But most days it's either cold and wet or the mosquitoes are horrible. So we haven't quite figured out how to best make use of that as of right now. But so one of the interesting things about Port Penn, like I said, a lot of the folks that live in the community have deep roots here. So it's 1974 when the country was getting ready for the 200th anniversary, bicentennial. Townsfolk thought they wanted to do something special for the bicentennial. So the Civic Association in town put out a call to everybody in town and said, hey, if you got stuff in your attic or stuff that your granddad had or whatever that you don't want anymore, we're collecting that and we're going to put it in a display. So they actually got a bunch of stuff donated, so they really had to think about, well, where are we going to display this stuff? They were able to acquire the old schoolhouse, which was at that point being used as a bait and tackle shop, and they turned it into a museum. They just basically put all this stuff in there and let people tour it, and it was really popular. So they decided they would continue it after the bicentennial ended, and they put some work into the building. They did everything volunteer. And unfortunately, by 1990 or so, they just didn't have the volunteer help to be able to do it anymore. So that's when Delaware State Park stepped in. We took it over, we retooled the museum a little bit, and opened it as the Port Penn Interpretive Center. And that is what it is today. Now, I was talking before, they just redid the foundation, because it's been closed for a number of years at this point. Planning on reopening the museum in October. And we'll have refreshed exhibits and things like that, so it'll be a grand reopening. Hopefully you'll be able to come see it.
Yeah. So a lot of interesting knowledge. I'm glad I made the trip down.
Yeah, thanks for coming by. I'm sorry it was just you, but hopefully you enjoyed it anyway.
Yeah.
Nothing much to Port Penn, but it's a really interesting town for sure. It's definitely more than most people realize just driving through on Route 9. Because it really is a blink and you miss it kind of place. But I wonder if they they might have showed a plate. Any other questions?